The calm before the storm didn't last long on the deck of Below Deck Mediterranean Season 10. What started as another day under the sun quickly spiraled into one of the most shocking shakeups the yacht has ever seen. Tension brewed, whispers spread, and before anyone could steady themselves, Captain Sandy Yawn made a decision that would change everything. 2 crew members, Christian Trimino and Tessa were about to face the firing line. But what led to this chaos? And how did the deck team unravel so quickly? Stay with me, because this story dives deep into the messy reality behind leadership, loyalty, and the moment when safety becomes more important than second chances. If you're already hooked, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more explosive below-deck breakdowns that reveal what really happens behind the cameras. You won't want to miss what comes next. It all started with the growing friction on the deck. Captain Sandy had been observing the crew closely, and what she saw was far from shipshape. The deck team, once full of energy and promise, was now stumbling through tasks that could have endangered guests. Lost communication, missed signals, and reckless mistakes painted a worrying picture. Bosun Nathan Gallagher was struggling to keep things under control. He'd stepped into his leadership role for the first time, and the weight of responsibility was crushing him fast. The breaking point came when Sandy called him into a private meeting, her tone calm but her eyes sharp. She needed a recommendation. Who should stay and who should go? Nathan didn't rush his answer. He took a breath, staring out at the open sea, the silence between them heavy. Then, with the steadiness of a leader who knew this moment mattered, he admitted what he'd been dreading to say out loud. The team was failing, and to save the operation, he believed both Christian and Tessa had to go. The words hung in the air like an anchor dropping. Half his team, gone in a single decision. But Nathan wasn't thinking about loyalty anymore. He was thinking about safety, reputation, and survival. Captain Sandy didn't flinch. She looked at Nathan and said something that would echo across the entire season. "You're being a true leader." The compliment came with a sting. Sandy knew what it meant to fire good people, to look someone in the eye and end their dream job. But she also knew the rules of the sea. When the safety of the guests is at risk, emotions don't matter. Decisions do. What followed was a storm of emotion behind closed doors. Sandy, in her confessional, revealed how hard it was to back Nathan's call, but she stood firm. "I've witnessed Nathan educate his team, talk to his team constantly," she explained. "We need people who can understand direction and then take action. That's not happening with Tess and Christian." It was clear she respected Nathan's leadership, but was also bracing for the fallout, because no firing on below deck ever ends quietly. First up to the bridge was Christian, the deckhand who had tried, stumbled, and tried again, but whose inexperience had repeatedly put the crew in risky situations. Sandy's voice softened as she spoke. "Times like this are never easy for me, ever," she began, the weight of her words pressing into the silence. "But safety's non-negotiable. It's number one. We all know that. So, at this point, I'm letting you go." Christian's eyes dropped, and for a moment, it looked like the weight of the ocean itself was sitting on his shoulders. You could almost feel the heartbreak through the screen. Christian wasn't just losing a job, he was losing a chance to prove himself. And yet, he took it with quiet dignity. "I mean, yeah, their reasons are valid," he said in his confessional, his voice breaking slightly. "But I wish I had the opportunity to show them I'm capable. Sorry if I put someone in danger." It's disappointing. Behind that disappointment was a young man who'd pushed hard but maybe too far without the right support. But it wasn't over. Captain Sandy still had another call to make, and this one would explode in a completely different way. When she radioed for Tessa to come to the bridge, the energy shifted instantly. Unlike Christian, Tessa was fiery, opinionated, and never afraid to speak her mind. As she walked up, her expression said it all. She knew something was coming, but she wasn't going down quietly. Captain Sandy began carefully. "From what I've observed in speaking with Nathan, it's completely chaotic on deck. It's not safe." Tessa nodded, expression tight. Nathan stepped in, his tone calm but firm. "There's been a few incidents where guests have gone missing or gone too far. They've jumped on an e-foil without an introduction." That line hit hard. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a pattern. A lack of control that could have ended in disaster. Sandy finished the conversation with finality. I have to make a change. I'm really sorry, but I gotta let you go. Tessa's reaction was pure frustration wrapped in shock. She managed to stay composed in front of Sandy, but didn't hide her feelings later. It's sad, she admitted. I maybe could have had more confidence on deck, but I was just so weary of where I stood on the deck team. Her words cut through the tension, revealing a deeper truth about the crew dynamic. Not everyone felt supported, and her final jab came with venom. I hope on my next boat that my bosun believes in me and has half a brain cell. Her bitterness was raw, but it also spoke to how emotionally charged yacht life can be. These aren't just jobs, they're floating families, pressure cookers of ambition and exhaustion. And when leadership breaks, the cracks show fast. Nathan looked visibly drained after the firings, a mix of guilt and relief flickering across his face. Captain Sandy, meanwhile, stayed stoic, but her voice in the confessional betrayed her emotion. As a first-time bosun, making this call is a very difficult one, she said softly, but I trust the decision is the right one. For Christian, leaving wasn't just about failure. It was about learning humility. In one of the episode's most touching moments, he reflected on his father's words, recalling how his dad had survived more than 20 aircraft accidents. This feels worse than the way he described them, Christian admitted. But, the silver lining is, if I stayed, I'm sure at some point I would have punched Max in the face. That line, half humor, half honesty, captured everything about Below Deck. The highs, the chaos, and the very human mess behind the polished service. Tessa's final words, however, showed she still had some fight left. I really do wish Nathan all the best, she said, managing a smile through the frustration. I'm sure he'll do great. It was the kind of ending that leaves viewers conflicted. Anger mixed with respect, bitterness mixed with grace. But here's the real twist. As Sandy stood on that bridge, watching two of her crew members leave, she wasn't just cleaning house. She was testing Nathan. His leadership had been under the microscope, and now, with half his team gone, he'd have to rebuild from the ground up. Could he rise to the challenge, or would this be the moment that breaks him? And as the sun set over the Mediterranean, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another firing. This was a turning point. A shift in the season that would redefine how the crew worked, trusted, and survived together. Because on the open sea, one mistake can cost everything. As night fell over the Mediterranean, the air aboard Bravado was heavy with silence. The kind of silence that only follows a storm. The crew went about their duties quietly, the usual laughter replaced by whispers and uneasy glances. 2 empty bunks now served as a reminder that nothing on this yacht was guaranteed. The firings had shaken everyone, especially Nathan. Standing alone on the bow, he stared at the reflection of the moon rippling across the waves, replaying every decision in his head. He had made the right call. At least that's what Captain Sandy had said. But right didn't always feel good. It felt heavy, like carrying the weight of the entire deck on his shoulders. Inside the bridge, Sandy was doing her own reflecting. Leadership, she knew, wasn't about being liked. It was about being respected, trusted, and sometimes feared. But firing 2 young crew members on the same day was never part of her plan. She had seen potential in both Christian and Tessa, but potential means nothing when lives are at stake. On a yacht, mistakes don't just inconvenience people, they endanger them. One missed signal, one distraction, one guest slipping into the water. That's all it takes. Sandy leaned back in her chair, watching the radar blink. Every decision she made carried lives with it, and tonight those choices felt heavier than ever. The rest of the deck crew tried to find their rhythm again, but the absence of Christian and Tessa echoed through every task. Max Salvador, the experienced deckhand who had clashed with Christian, was trying to keep morale up, yet even he seemed off balance. He'd gotten what he wanted, a cleaner, more efficient deck team, but seeing Christian's bunk empty reminded him that victory didn't always feel like winning. Nathan, still adjusting to his new role as bosun, was now forced to lead with half a team, proving himself not just to Sandy, but to everyone watching. The next morning, the crew gathered for a short meeting. The Mediterranean sun glared across the deck, but no one felt its warmth. Sandy's tone was sharp but reassuring. "We move forward. We rebuild. We learn from this," she said, scanning each face. "This is a team, and when one part of it falls, we all feel it. but it's also our job to get back up." Her words weren't just about the day's work. They were a challenge to the entire crew to rise above the drama, to reset and grow. Nathan nodded, standing beside her, quieter but stronger. The look in his eyes was no longer uncertainty. It was determination. While Sandy's message was clear, the emotions below deck were far from settled. In the crew mess, whispers turned into analysis. Some thought Sandy had been too harsh. Others believed she had no choice. Everyone had an opinion, but one thing was certain. The deck had become a battlefield of expectations and reality. Even the interior team, led by the Stews, could feel the tension every time they crossed paths with Nathan or Max. The yacht felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself carried the tension of unspoken fears. Later that day, Nathan checked in on the deck crew, making sure every task was running smoothly. Without Tessa and Christian, the work was doubled, and the pressure was relentless. But instead of frustration, Nathan approached his crew with patience. "Let's keep communication tight," he said, his voice calm. "We've had enough chaos. Let's focus on precision." It was the moment where the young bosun began to evolve from reactive to proactive. His mistakes, his doubts, his struggles, all of it was shaping him into the leader Sandy saw potential in. In her next confessional, Captain Sandy reflected on Nathan's growth. "When I look at Nathan now, I see a leader who's learning fast," she said. "He's been through fire, and he didn't burn. He's standing stronger. That's what leadership is, not perfection, but perseverance." Her eyes softened, showing a rare glimpse of pride. "He made a hard call, and I know it wasn't easy, but sometimes the hardest choices lead to the biggest growth." As the episode moved toward its close, the emotional weight shifted from chaos to renewal. Christian, seen one last time packing his bags, shared a final thought that hit deeper than anyone expected. "You come on these boats to chase adventure," he said quietly, "but you end up chasing your own limits. I messed up, sure, but I learned something about myself, that I can take a hit and keep going." His words didn't come with bitterness, just acceptance. He smiled faintly. "And who knows, maybe next time I'll be the one giving directions." Tessa's exit was more fiery, but behind her frustration, there was vulnerability. She had passion, raw and unfiltered, the kind that could easily ignite or inspire. Before stepping off the yacht, she turned back one last time, a flicker of emotion crossing her face. "I'll be back," she muttered. "And I'll be better." It wasn't arrogance. It was promise. With the crew reset and the yacht preparing for its next charter, the tone shifted once more. The chaos was over, for now. The bravado sailed into calmer waters, but the memory of what happened lingered in the wake. Nathan stood on the upper deck beside Captain Sandy as the boat cut through the sea. Neither spoke for a moment, just watching the horizon. Finally, Sandy said, "You did good, Nathan. Hard choices define good captains." Nathan nodded slowly. "Guess I'm learning from the best," he replied. It was a quiet exchange, but one that marked a turning point, not just for Nathan, but for the entire crew. As the final montage played out, the waves crashing, the crew resetting the deck, and Sandy steering toward a new charter, the story of Christian and Tessa's firing became more than just drama. It became a lesson about accountability, trust, and growth under pressure. Every person aboard Bravado had been reminded of one truth. On the sea, leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about making decisions that keep everyone afloat, even when it hurts. And as the episode faded out, with the camera pulling back from the gleaming yacht against the endless blue, viewers were left with one question echoing in their minds. When the next storm hits, will this crew hold strong, or will the cracks reopen? If you made it this far, you're a true Below Deck fan. Don't forget to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think deserved a second chance, Christian or Tessa? And subscribe to the channel for more dramatic deep dives into the wild world of Below Deck Mediterranean. Because out here on the open sea, the drama never sinks. It only surfaces stronger.